Welcome back to the Real Bodybuilding Podcast. This is episode 182, and I'm here with Dr. Neil Neimark, and he is a doctor of functional medicine, and he is going to teach us all about stem cells today because it seems to be a topic of interest. How are you, doctor?
I'm doing well, thank you, Fouad.
Well, it's good to have you here to help us out. I know you guys have a different type of stem cell, so I want to learn about that because it seems to be kind of the newest way to revitalize people's bodies and heal injuries and all these different things that you're going to teach us about today. But I kind of want to start off by asking you how you got into this field in the first place. Like, what was it, just a lifelong dream, or how did you end up where you're at now?
In medicine or in stem cells?
Both.
Both. Yeah, I was pretty much, I like helping people. I knew from the start I love science. I love to teach. I was actually
Okay.
going to be a teacher,
Okay.
and I decided teaching was too boring when I studied it in college.
Yeah.
I was going to be an elementary ed teacher because I love kids too. But I ended up saying I majored in math, and
Hmm.
I was always fascinated with science. And so then I just applied that and said, hey, I found a friend's dad was a doctor, found some old medical journals. I started looking through them and I'm like, hey, this stuff looks interesting. I'll try it.
Okay.
And I love it.
How long was the schooling for you to become a doctor? And was there like a precursor to where you're at now with stem cells?
Oh yeah, yeah. So schooling, I went to Ohio State University College of Medicine. That was actually at the time it was a 3 year all like but summer and every season. So
Yeah.
all year
Yeah.
round, 3 years to become a doctor. Then you do a year of internship, then 2 years of residency. Then I did a fellowship in academic medicine and the
Okay.
mind-body connection, how our thoughts and feelings affect our physical health and our
Sure.
physical well-being.
Yeah.
So, and then I just went into practice. And so I've been
Okay.
doing that for a long time, over 40 years.
Can I get into the mind body connection with you
Yeah,
for a minute before we get into stem cells? Because
absolutely.
I don't feel like people, and when you say mind body, is that connected to nutrition as well?
Sure.
Okay, because I one of the things we discussed on a previous podcast we just did actually recently was the connection between people eating foods that aren't necessarily healthy and the way their mind functions and depression and their mood and that kind of thing. And I was kind of describing that I didn't feel like people on average knew that, the worse the food they eat, the worse they feel mentally, not just physically.
Right.
Is that something that you studied in school, or is that something you found in your practice?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was reversed at the time. This was in the
Mhm.
80s. Mind-body medicine was really big, and this whole relaxation response. It was more how your mental attitude and mental state of mind could affect your physical health.
Oh, okay.
Certainly depression too. It's interesting. Nutrition really it came
After.
along a lot later. I mean, it
Okay.
really entered into the scene. It really became full blown with functional
Sure.
medicine in the last 20 years.
Hmm.
That it works the other way too. Certainly, what you eat can
Yeah.
affect how you feel.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a really interesting point as well. I never thought of the reverse. So we talk about it all the time in bodybuilding, for example. If like somebody's cortisol levels are very high, their body can retain water and they may look a certain way on stage.
Right.
So when you're talking about the mental state affecting the physical health, can you give me the example? Like, how does that, like, if somebody's angry or if somebody's stressed out, like, I know they say stress can be a major factor in somebody's health in their old age and things like that. So,
Right.
can you give me kind of an example of exactly how the mind body connection works?
Well, I mean, you picked the perfect one. Cortisol is a great thing. So, your adrenal glands react to your state of mind. So if
Hmm.
you're angry or upset, I mean, that's going to elevate your cortisol levels.
Sure.
So those initially it'll elevate them. I mean, if it's chronic stress over time, it'll deplete them.
Hmm.
But those, excuse me, those elevated cortisol levels then will have all those kind of effects on your body that you're talking about.
So when they say like stress levels affect when a guy has very high stress levels for a long time, it could cause heart attack or things like this. Like, is that a direct connection or is it like a deterioration of your health because of the stress?
Yeah, it's over. I mean, it's cumulative stress that acute stress can actually be good. Just, I guess, just like in bodybuilding, right?
Right.
The acute stress is how you build.
Hmm.
But if there's not an appropriate period of rest or downtime, if you don't balance that sympathetic fight flight system
Sure.
with the parasympathetic rest, relax, digest system, then that's when you get into trouble. It's the chronic recurrent stress
Okay.
that
So,
leads to overload.
and I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but like when they describe, when they say you should meditate for 5 to 10 minutes a day and give your body a chance to like really relax, is that something that is kind of like, is it kind of fluff or is it like, is it real? Like,
No.
does that actually help the body?
Yeah, that's real. I mean, that's
Okay.
parasympathetic. So
Okay.
every fight flight, every sympathetic overdrive is balanced by our parasympathetics.
Okay.
So that's the calming rest digest phase of emotional life.
Right.
So yeah, meditation definitely triggers a vagal nerve stimulation and it triggers that calming relaxation, sort of what we call the parasympathetic. So yeah,
Right.
that's essential. It would be like getting proper rest
Hmm.
in between exercise or enough sleep or anything.
I think it's something I need to add into my daily routine because I don't really do any meditation, but I'm like, the more I read about it, the more I'm like, maybe I need to add in 10 minutes a day, you know?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be meditation. I mean, a ton of things trigger parasympathetics. It can be just relax. It can be in listening to enjoyable music. It can be
Okay.
watching a sunset. It can be staring up at the stars at night. It can be, prayer. It can be any number of things.
Well, that's interesting you say that because most people when most people I've talked to and myself included, when I think of meditation, I think, okay, I got to sit in a dark room. I got to somehow clear my mind, which is always impossible because
Yeah,
it's
it's
there's always
impossible.
something. Yeah, there's always something, right?
Right.
So I didn't realize that all of those other factors might just be as beneficial.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah. Or just deep breathing. I mean,
mhm,
just counting your breathing. I mean,
right.
we measure that parasympathetic by something called HRV, heart rate variability.
Okay.
So you can get these devices that measure your heart rate variability and just make sure you're in the zone,
Okay.
getting those parasympathetics to calm down that sympathetic overdrive, lower those cortisol levels, and rebalance the system.
What would those devices be? Like, what are they called? If I wanted to buy one or have something like
Uh,
that, like, is that something
yeah,
that you can get like at home?
so for sure we use them in research laboratories.
Okay.
Most of the HRV kind of units that you see now are tied to some of these meditation devices where you put on the headphones, you connect a little electrode to your ear, and it'll kind of tell you what your heart rate variability is.
Okay.
But I can't remember the name of the devices that
Okay.
you can get commercially. But you could probably
Yeah.
type it in on Amazon and find.
I am looking at them right now. They look very, very complex. I don't think this is what you're talking.
Yeah,
This is what
it
you're
it
talking
may
about.
it may not be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the Heart Math Institute. So they
Okay.
they carry a device. Heart Math does a lot of research on these sorts of things. So they carry a device that's like 150, $200 that connects to your iPhone, has an app, connects to your ear, and it'll let you know if you're in the zone of that parasympathetic.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm gonna check
And
it out.
then, by the way, for people who just don't want to do any of that, we now have vagal nerve stimulators that trigger parasympathetic. Like one's called True Vega, where you
Okay.
just hold it up against your vagus nerve in the carotid, and it'll definitely just gives a little electric shock that
This
stimulates the vagus nerve.
this is what you're talking about. Can you
I'm
can
not
you
sure
can
I can
can you see
see
that?
it.
Oh, you might have to swipe. It's probably not showing
Yeah,
up on your
I'm
screen. It's okay. It says I'm sharing my screen, but maybe you have to swipe left or right. It doesn't. It's okay. I just I
oh
brought
yeah, I can't see it. But I'm sure it's up there. It's a little handheld
yeah.
device. It's actually FDA approved for the treatment of migraine headache. It calms the system that much. There's another one called Pulsetto, which is great. It's like a behind the ear headphones. It comes around and it just you put a little gel on it, it goes right on your neck,
Sure.
and you can do a 10-minute stress relaxation thing. So that's a way to hit the parasympathetics without, because a lot of times if your mind's racing all the time,
Yeah,
meditation, some of those things just aren't going to work for you.
you're right. So
Yeah,
this device, I literally just put it on my neck where the vagus nerve is,
right.
and it helps me relax by like just putting it there.
Well, what it does is it stimulates the vagus, which is the central nerve of the parasympathetic
Okay.
nervous system. So
Okay.
it triggers the antidote to the fight flight.
Sure. Sure.
So
I like that.
yeah, so it's a nice, easy way for
Your
people with
cheat.
overactive
Yeah.
minds to calm
It's like
down.
it's like a cheat code for relaxation. I'm
It's
gonna try.
basically right.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. All right. So fast forward a little bit. When did you get into stem cells, and what was it that triggered the interest in stem cells?
So I got into stem cells probably 8, 10 years ago. I got into the MSC at the time, the mesenchymal stem cell.
Okay.
I had I had actually watched some kind of documentary and I'm like, holy crap, this
Right.
stuff's really developed since, because in med school, we didn't learn anything about stem cells at the time.
Right.
So I realized that the science had really evolved. I found this company run by a Dr. Kristen Kamela. I think it was American Cell Technology down in Florida. And I took their training. I learned how to do a mini liposuction in the office.
Okay.
We'd suck off fat, we'd send it down to Florida. They would culture expand some MSCs, mesenchymal stem cells,
Okay.
and then we'd order them back in a month or two, and we could get vials and just give them IV to our patients.
Right.
And mostly at the time, I was using it on patients that some that had injuries, some that had joint injuries or muscle aches or whatever, cervical radiculopathies,
Yeah.
spinal pain, sciaticas, whatever. But I have a lot of patients with autoimmune disease, so we were using it in our rheumatoid patients, our patients with colitis, just anybody who had any kind of autoimmune
Right.
or just wanted to rejuvenate the body. I mean, the
Yeah.
key is that the stem cells are the repair system of the human body.
Right.
So,
So, sorry, can I interrupt for 1 second? I just want to
yeah,
ask you. So the MSCs or mesenchymal or
mesenchymal stem cell.
mesenchymal stem cells, are those the same stem cells that are popular now, or have they changed? I know you're doing something different, but like I had stem cells done twice, once last year and the once the year before. So
Okay.
are MSCs pretty much what's being used across the board?
Yeah, you would have had MSCs. It would be
Okay.
very rare to find. I mean, the only other kind of stem cell that we use routinely in medicine is the HSC, the hematopoietic stem cell.
Okay.
And that's really for leukemias. That's
Okay.
for stem cell transplants. But you would have had some form of MSC.
Hmm.
You can get them, excuse me, you can get them from umbilical cord tissue,
Yeah.
right? From
Yeah.
Wharton's jelly or from cord blood, or you can draw them off your own fat or bone marrow. So,
Sure.
but it would have, how did you get them?
I
Did they
had
do a bone marrow or fat aspiration?
I don't actually remember. It's funny. I don't actually remember how they did it. I believe it was fat aspiration.
Oh,
It
okay.
definitely wasn't bone marrow. I know that for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You would know if you got a
yeah,
needle in your
yeah,
bone.
yeah.
Yeah.
That one I would have felt. Um, but I did an IV. I did two IV treatments, and I did one directly into an injury in my wrist that I had.
Okay. How
Um,
did it work for you?
I did actually notice very good results because I have uh, kidney disease, like
Okay.
early stage, and I actually noticed my GFR numbers increased considerably.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wow, that's great.
once the first time and then again the second time. So I had like, two pretty good results from it, and my wrist actually healed up pretty good. But I don't know if that would have healed anyways. But the kidney number was really the
That's
test. The test,
impressive.
yeah, that was the test for me.
Right.
Now, to my knowledge, when they inject intravenous stem cells, the MSCs, the stem cell just goes to where your body needs it. And how it was explained to me was that basically a rejuvenation. You're getting rid of old cells in replacement for you're putting in new cells to replace old cells. Is that
Okay.
kind of is that
Yeah,
that's
it's
probably a
not.
really simplistic way to look at it, but
Yeah, that's
yeah.
not really accurate for MSCs.
Okay.
MSCs are, even though they're called mesenchymal stem cells, the guy that discovered them, Arnold Kaplan at Cleveland Clinic, he wanted to rename them medicinal signaling cells
Okay.
because they work by stimulating local stem cells.
Okay.
So if you inject MSCs and they get in your circulation, and there's some debate how much actually goes through the circulation because these things are about 30 microns large, about three, four times the size of a red blood cell.
Right.
And a bunch of them do initially get trapped in the pulmonary vasculature. They get trapped in the lungs. So how many then actually make it out? We're not exactly sure, but
Sure.
they do produce these signaling molecules, even in the lung tissue, that will circulate through the body, and
Okay.
that'll stimulate local tissue stem cells. So let's take your wrist. Maybe the tendons were inflamed there. So
Yeah.
you have local stem cells in that area called
Right.
tissue committed stem cells or tissue specific stem cells that make only tendons or
Okay.
that make only blood vessels around the tendon. So the MSCs really, what they do is they circulate and they will then stimulate repair. They kind of encourage, it's like a great
Right. Right.
coach.
Right. Right.
They'll encourage those local stem cells to, hey,
Yeah.
wake up and get, you got work to do here.
Yeah.
You got some repair that needs done.
So you're not replacing your stem. You're not replacing your cells. You're just sparking them into action.
Correct, because
Okay.
MSCs, even your own, probably don't last much longer than 3, 4 months in the body once you put
Right.
them in.
Is that why that must be why the doctor told me to give it 3 months, like
Right.
not to assess like how good you're doing right away. Wait a couple months. Is that why he said that? Because it takes time to really.
Yeah, that's the hard part. So the V cells are a little different that we'll talk about in a minute, but in general, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for stem cells to start to kick in because it's a process of they do multiply and then they have to stimulate those local stem cells to start to multiply and divide.
Sure.
Each one of those things takes a couple weeks. So we know where you're going to be at about 3 weeks. It starts working.
Yeah.
6 weeks, you're about midway. By 3 months,
Yeah.
whatever you got is what you're going to get.
I see. Okay. So the reason I wanted to have you on is you have a little bit different technique or a different type of stem cell. Now,
Correct.
the one question before we get into it, I want to ask you is I know there's a lot of laws surrounding stem cells in the US and if you can administer them and how you administer them and all of that. So that's why a lot of people I know, they go to Colombia, they go to Dubai, they go to different places, Mexico, wherever they can get it done.
Right. Right.
Is that still an issue in the US? And is that an issue with your type of stem cell?
Well, we don't know, especially now with RFK. I'm hoping that the
Right,
FDA finally gets it together. I mean, the
right.
only reason those restrictions are there are political.
I figured that.
They're,
Yeah,
so it's not a medical question, it's a political question, and
yeah,
I'm hoping that all changes.
right,
But no, we can give stem cells here. You have to, like, especially the ones that we use, they're your DNA. So they're your cells. We're just taking them out, we activate them, and we put them back in.
right,
And we can do culture expansion in the United States. Or you can just get off the shelf non-expanded umbilical cord, which
yeah,
have a lot of advantages, even as an MSC,
sure,
because here's the problem at whatever age you are, that's how old your stem cells are. So
right,
your stem cells age, so they really lose a little bit of their versatility. They don't produce as many proteins. So like an umbilical MSC
yeah,
may produce 300 different protein growth factors, benevolent cytokines, things like that. Whereas an adult stem cell, maybe it produces 100,
right,
we don't know. They still work.
right,
We wouldn't be
right,
alive without stem cells,
right, right.
but they're not nearly as robust.
But that's the political question that you were alluding to earlier is people have a problem with using other stem cells for, is that really what it comes down to?
Yeah, because if you now go to umbilical cord, you're into somebody else's DNA. And there
Right.
is some processing. Sometimes there's preservatives that are put in. Um, Even though medically speaking, umbilical cord MSCs from somebody else's DNA are immune privileged. There are no
Okay.
surface markers that are going to trigger your immune system. They're not going to create a medical problem, but
Okay.
they do create maybe a political problem.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the other political side of it is, and I've heard this before, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the other political side of it is big pharma, for example, in quotes, doesn't want this because it can actually heal people in a different way. Is
That,
that
well,
is that a
that's
factor?
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in autoimmunity, I mean, if you can do stem cell infusions and get people off biologics that cost, 6 to 8 grand a month for
Right.
life,
Right. Right.
why would they want that? I mean, it's sort of the
Okay.
dark side of
I know.
capitalism.
Yeah. No, I understand. So I'm actually really interested in this because I've been thinking about doing stem cells again because I've had, I said, I've had great success. But I looked at some of the educational material you sent me, and so the two things I got from it, and you can obviously explain this a lot further, was
Okay.
your stem cells are a lot smaller, so that's going to stop with the blockage you were talking about,
Right.
and you have a technology that can actually get them to exactly where you want them. So,
Yeah.
so maybe you can start to kind of like, broaden that out for me a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the V cell, which is VSEL, stands for very small embryonic-like stem cell. So the big difference between an MSC, a mesenchymal stem cell, and a V cell is that V cells are pluripotent. They literally can become any other cell type in the body. When you inject them into the human body, they can become a new liver cell. They can become a new kidney cell. They can become a new satellite cell or muscle stem cell. They can become a new brain cell, a new neuron.
Hmm.
When you put those MSCs in, remember we said they're just secret. They work by their signaling molecules. So they just signal local stem cells to go back to work.
Right.
But the V cell can actually become and replenish what we call the local stem cell niche. So
Right.
that local stem cell niche, let's say in the area of your tendon where you had that injury, or even let's say your kidney, the local stem cells in your kidney were however old you are.
Right.
So when you put V cells in, they can go to that area, assess the damage, and actually become a new local kidney cell. We call them a kidney progenitor cell.
Right. Right.
That's that. Those are they only. In other words, a progenitor cell only becomes that tissue. So a liver progenitor cell only becomes a liver cell. A
Okay.
kidney progenitor cell only a kidney cell. A, a brain progenitor cell,
Yeah.
only a new neuron. So those are the local stem cell niches.
Hmm.
So not only can, and the other thing is a V cell can actually become an MSC. It can become a
Okay.
mesenchymal stem cell.
Okay.
So it
So,
can take on all those characteristics. We think it may be the primordial stem cell, the one
okay.
from which all the other stem cells, even hematopoietic stem cells, that create your white cells, red cells,
Right.
platelets, are formed.
So your technology or your stem cell, the V cell, is actually more so what I was saying to begin with.
Yeah,
It's not replacing, but it's attaching to and becoming
it
the
it
same.
actually will replace old damaged cells with
Okay.
brand new cells. The really one of the most remarkable things about the V cell is that, and it's not my cell. It was discovered in
Sorry,
2006
I
by
know
a doctor. Yeah,
I keep saying
I
that. I apologize.
I wish I discovered it, but it's we're one of like 30 centers or so across the world that use this song laser V cell technology. This was discovered and developed by Dr. Ovakaitis and a Dr. Strachan, and they developed this basically this technology that because we've known about the V cell since 2006.
Yeah.
Here's the beauty and the problem with the V cell at the time, and these things are formed somewhere between 5 to 15 days of gestation of a new developing embryo. So they're very early.
Right.
They're brand new.
Right.
At the time of your birth, they literally go into a metabolic hibernation.
Okay.
They become quiescent, they go dormant,
Right. Right.
and they don't age.
Okay.
So they become timeless, they become ageless. It's literally, but that also presents the problem. There are, when you injure yourself, there are signaling molecules. Let's say you get some muscle tears, right?
Right. Right.
That muscle will send out something called GCSF, granulocyte colony stimulating factor, that sends a signal to the bone marrow and says, hey, we need some more stem cells here. Release some V cells, release some MSCs from the bone marrow where they kind of hang out and send them to us. We need them.
Okay.
That same tissue, about 12 hours later, produces a molecule called SDF1,
Okay.
stromal derived factor 1.
Okay.
Stromal derived factor 1 is like a guy on the ground saying, seeing a helicopter over and say, hey,
Yeah.
here, I'm over here. I'm lost. We need you
Right.
here.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
that's the signaling molecule that says to the circulating stem cell, come to this area.
Okay.
So the problem with the V cell is that when it's in its quiescent state, it only awakens if it gets an SDF1 signal.
I see. Okay.
But if we just draw them out of your and they're so small they float with the plasma. So
Right.
they circulate in the when we spin them in when we take your blood,
In the centrifuge. Yeah.
we spin it in the centrifuge so the liquid plasma portion of the blood is where the V cells are. But if we just put them back in you, they wouldn't do anything because they're still asleep. That's
Sure.
where the song laser comes in. So
I see.
Dr. Ovakaitis and Dr. Strachan developed this special, unique waveform that awakens the stem cell. It releases a blocking molecule on the surface that brings it to life, and it's now active. It's activated from that laser. And basically, we just shine the laser on the syringe with your plasma in it. We
Right.
shine it for like 3 minutes. That activates the stem cells.
Hmm.
And now we re-inject them back into your vein. And while they're circulating, that very same laser will attract them to the area where we shine the laser.
Okay.
It doesn't direct them. They'll go everywhere in your body. If you
Right.
have inflammation in your big toe, some are going to go to your big toe.
Right.
But with the laser, we can draw a certain percentage more to the areas we want
Sure.
and a meaningful percentage
Right.
because we have studies that show, like in cardiomyopathy, where patients have a weakened heart,
Hmm.
that when we shine that laser on the heart, we get a 50% improvement in ejection fraction with the V cell treatment in 3 months relative to an average of 8% improvement when they just inject them even into the coronary arteries.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
we know that laser sends out signals that attract the circulating V cells and they change the adhesion characteristics of the surrounding tissue so they're
Sure.
more receptive. It's kind of like an SDF1 signal.
Right. Right. I get it. So, um, for example, when I was doing the MSCs,
Right.
after my second treatment, they said they wanted me to come back for a third one when I was ready and
Okay.
do a direct injection into the. Is there an artery that goes to the kidney? Obvious.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
renal artery that
Yeah.
goes to the kidney,
That's it.
sure.
That's it. So they wanted to do stem cell injection right into the renal artery, from what I recall. I hope that doesn't
Okay.
sound. I hope that doesn't sound wrong.
That's pretty invasive, but
It was. It was. They actually said it was like a pretty intense
it's
treatment.
an
But
interventional radiology procedure. Yeah.
right. So I consider doing it. Now you're saying that you've done that. You're saying that with the laser guiding the V cells,
Right.
you're actually getting a better result than them injecting directly into like the renal artery, for example. You can actually get more of those stem cells to the kidney without having to inject into the artery.
So it's a compounded, complicated question, but
Okay.
let me try and break it
Break
down.
it down. Yeah.
The song, we know that the song laser will attract more, whether you'll get more than a direct injection, we don't know.
Right.
But what we do know is that we get better clinical results in the heart. It has not been tested. We don't have any kidney patients that I can give you data on.
Right.
But Dr. Ovakaitis published a study with 10 heart patients. And by the way, that song laser works on MSCs too.
Okay.
He activated MSCs in most of those patients, and then they did a couple patients with the V cells that got an even better reaction.
Right.
So that the same laser will attract MSCs as well as V cells.
Right.
The beauty of the V cell is that we get it from a peripheral blood draw. We get better clinical results in terms of improved heart function.
Right.
And considering the heart's a muscle, just think it probably would be the same with any muscle in the body, even skeletal muscle.
Right.
So that laser um, attracts the activated stem cells. But if they weren't first activated by the laser, it it doesn't, it's meaningless. You're just
Right.
putting quiescent, metabolically dormant cells back into circulation. They'll just go back to the bone marrow.
Okay, I got you. So the really the two things I mentioned are still kind of the prevalent two things. Like one being them being small enough that they're smaller than a red blood cell means they can go
Correct.
it means they can go anywhere and they don't get trapped.
Yeah, you would not need to put them in your renal artery. They're going to
Yeah.
circulate everywhere
Yeah.
in your body. We
Right.
shine the light on the kidneys from the back.
Right.
And the other thing about this laser that is really different, like I've seen people talk about regular lasers, traditional like photobiomodulation lasers that you use for treating injuries. It's not like that. This is a highly patented, highly sophisticated device. It converts that laser beam into an acoustic, a resonant acoustic vibration.
Okay.
Okay. And that's why it penetrates throughout the whole body. A
Okay.
traditional laser, if you shine a laser on the body, it'll go maybe a centimeter under the skin.
Sure.
It's not going to make it all the way to your kidney.
Right.
It's not going to make it all the way to your brain in a Parkinson's patient.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but the song laser, which Dr. Ovakaitis developed, that because it turns it into an acoustic vibration,
Right.
it's a resonant vibration that does go all the way through the body.
Okay. So I'm going to get away from we've been talking a lot about kidney stuff just because I'm interested for myself.
Sure.
But I have a lot of muscle and muscular injuries as well. And the people that are probably watching this are probably more concerned with, some of the regular things that bodybuilders go through would be like tendonitis in the elbows, knee injuries, torn muscles,
Right.
that maybe they've had surgery on but didn't heal properly, things like that. So in those regards, as far as like physical performance, is it just as beneficial? Is it more beneficial than MSCs? Is it something that you would recommend to help with these things, or is it more for serious degenerative issues like autoimmune issues and things like that? Things like that.
Right. No, I think they're better, although we don't have head-to-head studies with MSCs and V cells.
Right.
They're both good. Any stem cell is good, but remember what I told you about the V cell. It's pluripotent. An
Hmm.
MSC does not differentiate into any new stem cells in your body.
Right.
It'll stimulate your local satellite muscle stem cells to try and repair and regenerate, but it cannot become a new satellite cell, right? The satellite is the is
I
the
got you.
is the
Yeah.
muscle progenitor cell, right? But a V cell can become a new satellite cell.
Right.
And
Uh,
not only that, go ahead.
sorry, I have a wishful thinking question.
Yes, go.
If I've torn a muscle
Right.
and let's say, and I'm just going to give you, I think people that watch the podcast already kind of know this. So I tore my tricep a long time ago.
Okay.
They reattached it, but it's just not what it used to be.
Okay.
If you do the V cell, does it actually grow? Like, will it regrow tissue?
You
I,
mean regrow muscle?
yeah, like, will it regrow the muscle tissue to be thicker, denser, more full looking? Like, will it do any of that, or is it more just fixing the damage to the tendon or the damage to any damage that the muscles already?
No, it will definitely affect muscle repair. I mean, this is your repair system. So
Right.
yes, the V cell will replenish the local stem cell niche in that damaged muscle. The
Okay.
problem with damaged muscle is even after they repair it, you've got these things called FAPs, fibroadipogenic progenitor cells that in a chronically damaged muscle then infiltrate those muscle fibers with fat and scar tissue and fibrous
Okay.
tissue.
Right, right,
So
right.
now, I will tell you, if you can get cells into that area, and because V cells are small enough to go through the circulation, they are anti-fibrotic. They will
Okay.
break up scar tissue. In fact, we have patients that
Huh.
get stem cells that old scars start to shrink. And if
Okay.
you, because scar tissue forms because there aren't enough stem cells in that local
Right,
area
right.
to replace it with the actual original cells. So
So
it's kind of a fix.
it's like a
It's a
Band-Aid in a way.
Band-Aid.
Yeah, right, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. So
So
this
no,
is
those stem cells could be put into, a damaged area. But again, some of it's too early to know. You just have to try it and see. But let me say one other thing that I want to make clear because, and this is a really big factor on the V cell. Those V cells, when we reactivate them, do you know what biologic age is?
mm-mm.
So biologic age is basically the functional age of your cells. So
Okay.
let's say chronologically you're 40 years old.
Right.
If you take great care of yourself, your biologic age, maybe it's 35, maybe it's
I see.
34.
I got you.
It may be 45 or 50 if if you're eating in and outs all day long.
Right.
So it just depends. But we can measure biologic age by a process called methylation DNA clocks or a
Okay.
methylation of your DNA. A simple blood sample will tell us how old your cells are biologically. We use a company called True Diagnostic that does basically a methylation clock. They test close to 1 million sites throughout your chromosomes, and by the patterns of what we call methyl groups on one of the DNA bases called cytosine, we can determine your biologic age.
Okay.
When you measure the biologic age of these activated V cells, they're zero.
Yeah.
They are literally like you having your newborn
Right.
cord blood stem cells to inject into your own body. And it's your DNA.
hmm
There's no additives. There's a laser beam that shines through and sends a vibration through them, but that's it. It's a closed system. So we're not adding anything. So when you put V cells in an area,
Right.
you're not only repairing damage, you're reversing age.
Right.
For example, we do this procedure on a lot of our patients because I have a lot of, patients 60s and above
Yeah.
just for anti-aging.
Sure.
And on average, a single V cell treatment reverses the biologic clock 3 years within
No
three
way.
months. And it lasts forever, as far as we know. And it's additive. If you do two treatments, you'll get 6 years. If you
That's
do
what I
three
was gonna
treatments,
I was gonna
you
ask
get
you.
9 years. The
Yeah.
most we have so far is about 18 years.
Does the person look 18 years younger though?
No, you don't always look 18 years younger,
Does he
but
feel
on a
18 years younger?
cell, yeah, well, you do feel younger on a
Yeah.
cellular level. Your body will respond to injuries as if you were
Right.
3 years younger or
Right.
6 years younger. I mean,
Yeah.
just imagine. I mean, there's not one of us that doesn't say, "Hey, I did feel a little better 10 years
Right.
ago than I do now, or
Right.
even 5 years ago."
Right. 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 So the meth is it methylation DNA?
Yeah, what
That's
True
the test.
Diagnostic is the main company that does it,
Yeah.
but they're called DNA methylation
DNA
clocks.
methylation class. Okay. So the
Yeah,
reason I asked is if let's say I come to you for a V cell treatment,
right.
do you do this test so I can see
Yeah,
what my biologic age is?
it's an add-on. It's not part of the procedure, but
Right.
a lot, I would say over half our patients do it. Yeah, we just draw an extra blood sample and then we send it off to True
Right.
Diagnostic for you. And then we do it because 6 months after they want to repeat it and
Right.
check it and say, hey,
Right.
look, I was 44 and now I'm 41. It
Right.
worked.
Right. Right. Well,
Kind of like your EGFR.
the reason I asked is my mom used to, it's funny, my mom in Arabic translated to English, she would say, you have an old stomach.
Yes.
Or she would say your stomach is tired. And what she meant by that was as bodybuilders,
Yeah.
and again, I'll relate to the audience because this is actually really important. As bodybuilders, we eat so much food and so much protein.
Right.
Some of us eating upwards of six, 5, 6, 7,000 calories a day for years on end.
Right.
The majority of us, if we start when we're 20, by the time we get to 30 or 35, we've developed some type of digestive issue, whether it be
Right.
a colitis, an IBS, a something, some type of
Wow.
gastrointestinal issue, right?
Okay.
So my mom would say, your stomach is tired from processing all that food, right? So I find that really interesting that you said that because, not only the stomach, but, and there is a dark side to bodybuilding, obviously.
Right. Right.
Obviously, with steroid use and hormone use, it kind of ages the body faster.
It does.
So a lot of people that are bodybuilding, a lot of people, experiment and do things, and especially professional bodybuilders. That's actually very interesting to me because even though I'm 46, I wonder sometimes how much I've aged my body.
Right.
So
Well,
that,
this is the way to
yeah,
tell. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you do a DNA methylation clock. You do, and your mother was wise. I can tell from that because she's right. That
right,
is what happens. Stem cell exhaustion is a major cause of illness as we get older and
right,
chronic pain and chronic injury.
right,
Your stem cells just lose their numbers, they go down in number and they lose their functionality. And
sure,
as you know, because all that protein intake triggers a lot of mTOR
yep,
activity, you're building muscle, you're always in the growth phase,
right,
or not always, but in a much higher level of growth phase. That stimulates oxidative stress. It stresses out the mitochondria, all your energy producing, ATP that goes to repair stuff gets worn out a lot faster. So, yeah,
right,
I mean, to me, one of the most remarkable, I mean, I love it for joints. I love it for autoimmunity. I love it for because it gets past the blood-brain barrier. So the V cells are great for Parkinson's, cognitive issues. And again, let me be careful in case the FDA is watching. These are not treatments for any conditions. These are V cells are a regenerative treatment.
right,
We're just putting in healthy new cells, letting the body do what it does. But to me, one of the most magnificent things is that you can turn back. We're not just talking about anti-aging now, we're talking
right,
about getting to age reversal to some degree. Now, we're
sure,
not going to go back to, being babies or
right,
teenagers,
right,
but we can turn back our biologic age, our cellular age, and rejuvenate at a cellular level that lets you heal as if you were younger, repair as if you were younger, and have strength as if you were younger.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot really quickly,
Okay.
and I'll edit this out if the answer is
Okay.
not what. No,
Okay.
the test for me is, have you done the treatment yourself?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I have
You
done the
have.
treatment.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
how
Yeah.
many times have you done it?
I've only done it once,
Okay.
but I'm ready to do another one. I just haven't. I've been so busy at the practice.
No,
We just,
once is enough. What I'm curious about is, did you feel I mean, look, obviously you're treating people with it. Obviously you believe in it,
right,
but
right.
really, did you notice a marked difference? Did you do blood work to notice a difference? Do you feel different? What can you report about the treatment?
So for me, I did the treatment as part of the training. I did Dr. Ovakaitis. I was at his office, the guy who developed the laser. So he's the one that did the treatment on me. I did it at the time. I had two things. I get this irregular heartbeats called SVT, supraventricular tachycardia. Like periodically, my heart will just start beating really fast. I've
Right.
had to take medicine for it. So, and I wanted them to do a little bit on that, but I
Right.
was getting something called peripheral neuropathy. It was like
Okay.
the nerve endings get irritated in my feet and they were
Sure.
getting cold and you get a burning feeling and I have to put on socks at night because I felt
Right.
like I just couldn't keep them warm. And the
Right.
circulation was good. I mean, I'm otherwise pretty healthy. And I did have them do the laser on my feet, a little bit on my heart. And the peripheral neuropathy in me literally is 85% gone. It's
Really?
like it it just, I don't feel that
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
The heartbeat thing really got better for about 8 weeks. I was like, holy crap, I got off all my medicine. I
Hmm.
didn't need it anymore. I wasn't getting any irregular heartbeats. Then it kind of came back a little.
No, really.
Now it's calmed down a little again, but this is why I
Yeah.
want to do another one too. I want to,
Sure.
just kind of regenerate whatever nerve endings were
So
causing my heart to beat.
you're on the podcast with me, and I believe in it already. Well, I haven't done V cells, but I've done
Right,
MSCs, and I already believe in stem cell treatments because I've seen the results myself in my blood work. Not just,
right.
I have friends that have done it that are like, oh, I feel better. And I'm like, that's one way to look at it, but like I have actual data to show that
Okay.
like it helped, right? So that's kind of why I believe in it because I've actually seen medically the data for it, the benefits of it. So I'm really interested in this, but I know there are people watching that are like, this kind of sounds like fluff. You're putting a laser, it's making an acoustic sound that's drawing, and everything you've explained makes perfect sense to me. But
Right.
but how would you explain to a skeptic that like, is there
Yeah.
how much data is out there for a skeptic
Yeah.
to look at, I
Well,
guess.
the data is really good. I mean, the first thing I would do is just look at the patent. And
Okay.
I mean, look at the patent for the laser. There are multiple patents on it, but there's the quantum mathematics in there are pretty sophisticated. What Dr. Ovakaitis, who's just like a genius, has done is he's synthesized this very complex, um, highly technical field into what almost sounds like, oh, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
But it took decades of research and defining new waveforms and doing the research. So the data is really strong. And
Okay.
and we have clinical studies that show, especially in heart and especially in the anti-aging effect, that are
Right.
indisputable. I mean, methylation age is DNA methylation clocks are the standard for measuring anti-aging interventions.
Okay.
So the data is there. It may sound like it's just so simplistic, but it took it again, you're building on the shoulders of giants,
It's
right?
it's it's not that, sorry to interrupt. It's not that it sounds simplistic. Like I understand the
Okay,
complexity. I understand the complexity of it to my level of understanding.
right.
The too good to be true part is the part that people are like, they're gonna have a hard time wrapping their mind around.
Sure.
Like I said, I believe it because I've seen it myself. So this is all I'm trying. I like people to try new things. The
Yeah,
main barrier, and most people in the bodybuilding world have an open mind to these kind of things. I think the main barrier for our demographic
right.
is financial, and most demographics
Sure.
is financial, right? Like I've heard quotes for MSCs of up to $20,000. So can you give pricing? Like, can you tell people like where they can get it, how they can get it, what the cost is?
Yeah, so I think I mean, I'm a licensee of Dr. Ovakaitis's, so he trained, like I say, he's trained about 30 clinics. So they have pricing down there that runs about 10K, 10,000 for a V-cell treatment that is their standard 6-cell treatment. They also do a double, like where they'll do 12 tubes instead of 6. You
Hmm.
get double the amount of stem cells that goes a little bit higher. If you're going to go into joints, you're going to add a little
Yeah,
more,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in general, 10K is about kind of the average starting point, give or take,
Okay.
a
So
couple thousand.
in your experience, is that cheaper or the same as MSCs?
Well, MSCs are about the same,
Right.
or some clinics that I know that do them, it's a lot more.
I've
And
heard I've heard more. So I
yeah,
don't. Yeah.
well, like even Reardon, who's a genius down in Panama, who does, but he'll use expanded MSCs.
Okay.
So the culture expansion of MSCs are are not necessarily as effective in many cases as just unexpanded or certainly not as I don't think as effective as your own V cells, which are your own DNA. So you've
Right.
got no, and they're as robust as the day you were born. They're
Right.
newborn caliber.
Right.
Um, so yeah, is it too good to be true? It's not going to work on everyone. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Some people are are going to have injuries that maybe it won't respond. I
Right.
mean, we tell everybody up front, this is a regenerative treatment.
Right.
If your body's going to heal, this will do it. This is the cell that will do
I
it.
got you. I got you. Okay.
But
So,
not everybody gets a dramatic response. Like
right.
peripheral neuropathy is really hard to treat. I mean, people have that would, if they could reduce it by 20%, they'd be
Right.
elated.
Right.
For me, it was like 85, 90%, it's gone. I
Right.
like hardly ever feel it.
Right.
So for me, it worked.
Okay.
But joints, it's more reliable. I would say, if you're injecting into a knee, a shoulder, a hip, it's more reliable that you're going to get because you're going right into the synovial fluid, and that's where 80% of the cartilage is going to be nourished. Now, the outer 20% of a meniscus or a labrum, you're going to need an IV to get it through the circulation.
Right.
But joints are pretty much the mainstay. Orthopedics has been the mainstay of stem cell treatment. But I
So,
think anti-aging is taking it over. I think the aging effect to increase our health span, to turn back our biologic age. I had a guy 80 years old do a treatment. He literally told me, he goes, I feel like a different person. He's
yeah.
like, I didn't expect anything. I knew I wanted to try it. He goes, but it changed my attitude. He goes, and I don't know how, but I have more pep. I have more get up and go, and
Right.
I feel better about, doing the things that I love.
Right. So, I think if we're being very conservative,
Right,
we'll call it an experimental therapy. But is there is there types of treatments or is there types of areas that you would treat where you're like, I'm still going to call it experimental, but we have really good data behind this. And then there's other treatments where you're like, that's kind of like at your own risk. So like what I mean by that is
right,
if somebody comes in for their heart or for anti-aging,
right.
you would say, look, we have to say it's experimental, but we have really good data behind these two things.
Correct.
Whereas if they came in for like, hey, I want to rebuild my bicep or something, maybe you're not going to be as confident with that patient.
That's correct, because I have not seen V cells are too new to get the data on some of these musculoskeletal things right now.
Right, right.
And again, it's hard to get studies organized because of the cost, because of
Sure.
the regulations and all the,
Yeah. But it would stand to reason that from what you're telling me or what you're expressing about the way they work, it would stand to reason that if somebody's had good results with MSCs, the results are just going to be better with V cells. Like that's
yeah,
the theory would be
well, yes, they should be better. Although I'll be honest with you, there are cases where in a really bad bone on bone situation,
right,
if you were down to a last resort, it's either hip replacement or I'm going to try a stem cell.
right.
I would do a combination of V cell and MSC in a joint.
Okay,
If it
okay,
were terrible,
right,
because they're both, these they're both these incredible stem cells
right,
that work together all the time in the body.
right.
So if you're down to a situation where it's last resort, because those V cells will help stimulate the MSCs will help stimulate the V
They
cells.
work together.
V
Yeah,
cells can become new local cartilage cells. I mean, they will work in combination, but if you start doing that in general, then you're introducing two different concepts and it gets tricky and you're like doubling the price, the
right, right,
cost.
right. Of
Yeah,
course. So I just have one more question, and then
sure.
we can wrap. I know we've been on for about an hour, so I apologize if we've gone too long.
No, no, thank you.
It's
It's been great.
it's very interesting. It's a very interesting topic to me. Now, most of the people watching this, I think I have a little bit of a mixed demographic. Some are in their, 45, 50, 55.
Okay.
I think a lot of those people would be very interested, especially because of what I talked about with, steroid use and just bodybuilding in general, aging the body.
Aging the
I think a
body.
lot of those people would be very interested in the anti-aging portion of it. Now, the question I wrote down was, if I buy 6 tubes, right? Say it costs 10 grand, I go to your clinic. Can I tell you where I want those? Like, can I do 3 intravenous and 3 into a joint? Or is it like this is the package?
So we individualize every treatment. So we would definitely, for general rejuvenation, you want all six of those tubes in in the IV.
Sure.
Because the data on the DNA, the biologic age reversal, is based on those six tubes, which is 66 cc's. It's an 11 cc
Yeah.
proprietary tube. So we get about 40 cc's of PRP that we activate the stem cells. So all the anti-aging relies on those six. But we may say, hey, let's draw an extra tube and do your knee. We'll draw
Oh,
an eighth
okay.
tube. So we'll do six IV and then
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
add extra to do whatever other, if you got a skin lesion
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not healing or
I just
whatever.
I wasn't sure if it was 6 and then the next jump was 12. I didn't know I could do 6 and then add 1 or 2 or
Oh yeah, yeah.
whatever.
I'll often do six for the IV, and then if
Right.
a guy wants both his knees, we'll do one tube for each knee. So we'll draw eight.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Uh, I had a question pop into my head real quick. Oh, that's the question that just came to me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So I know the song laser is kind of like the really beneficial part of the treatment, along obviously with the cell itself. But
Right.
if you're doing an IV where it goes to the whole body and it's about anti-aging, how does the laser work? Do you put the laser all over the person's body, or like I don't
So
understand?
yeah, it's a great question. So
Yeah.
as I said, the laser will attract more cells to a certain area, but
Right.
they're going to circulate everywhere.
Okay.
What we call the rejuvenation or anti-aging protocol, we spend about 10 minutes on your brain because
Okay.
honestly, your brain it's the control, your hypothalamus and pituitary are the control center for every hormone, exosome, growth factor. I mean, we spend all that time on the brain. We do about an extra minute or two on the pituitary and the pineal gland. Then we'll do thyroid. We do thymus in the chest. We do adrenals in the back.
Okay.
And then you can do testicles as well and improve testosterone levels. So
So anybody with
that's
ED.
ED, a lot of people, I don't do the ED stuff, but a lot of people are doing those P shots where they'll actually inject the stem cells into the penis.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten into that because the thought of sticking a needle in there does not sound
It's
fun to me.
no, well, I just try to figure out, like you said, that they do the testicles. Is that for erectile dysfunction or is that for fertility?
No, well, it's part of the anti-aging because the hormones one, and it will boost testosterone levels,
Right.
probably, I don't know, about 20%.
Okay.
It won't be
Okay.
enough to
Yeah,
be a bodybuilder,
of
but
course. Well, no, because that actually does matter because a lot of guys, aside from bodybuilding, just regular guys, when they get to like 40, their testosterone levels start to dip
yeah, absolutely.
naturally. So that could be, a lot of guys when they hit 40 now, especially in our industry, are on some type of TRT therapy.
Right, right.
So if this is going to help with that, and they have to take less TRT or maybe no TRT, then maybe that's a benefit as well.
Yeah, I would think they'd still be on some form of hormone
Yeah.
replacement, but it might help boost the natural levels so you're
Right.
just getting better overall effect.
Would it help
But
with
yeah,
would it help with fertility at all? No, right?
oh yeah, I mean, a ton of work's being done in fertility with the V
Really?
cell and the
Huh.
MSC too. I mean, look, these stem cells form from the original fertilized egg. I mean, there's an intelligence in them that knows how to form a complete, sentient human being like we are, this
Right.
complex human being with a mind and a spirit and a brain and a body. And so those cells, there's intelligence in those stem cells. And these V cells come from that very early 5 to 15 day period.
Right.
And the fact that they go quiescent is just miraculous. I mean, that's
Right.
really the miracle is that we've got a day zero testable cell that
Right.
we can activate and put back in. Like if every one of us had our cord blood, because they weren't saving it when we were
Right.
probably born,
Yeah.
and you could get the stem cells from there, nothing works better than that. It's your
Right.
DNA, You don't have to add anything, and you reset the age clock at your local stem cell
Yeah.
niches.
So the fertility aspect, one more question about it. I don't want to harp on it, but
Yeah.
I know in our industry, especially because of steroid use and other things, there's a lot of guys that end up with fertility issues into their 30s, and they have to do all these different therapies to like get their sperm counts back up. How does that work with the laser? Just is that just where you focus on the testicles, or is there somewhere else the laser's focused to like bring fertility back?
Yeah, well, they're doing it mostly on women. I mean, even though
Oh, okay.
obviously men have
Right.
a major part in infertility, for
Right.
the guys, we would just get the V cells into the testicles and hope that that improves the sperm
Yeah.
count
Yeah.
and the hormone production. In the women, they'll do it on the ovaries.
I
They'll
see.
go into the uterine lining, the ovaries, and shine on the
That's
outside.
really interesting. Okay, I could probably keep you here another hour and just ask you these like little nitpicky questions, but I have a really good overview of it. I'm glad we got the price. If someone wants to book, do they just call your office? Do they go to your website? Like, how do
Yeah,
they book?
I think the easiest thing, honestly, if somebody's interested, because I can send them that PDF. I don't have anything set up formally, but if
Sure.
they just email me, I would just give them my email.
Okay, what is your email? Just so in
So my
case.
email is just drn, Dr. N,
Yeah,
and our clinic here is called mdpersonal.com.
right.
So drn at
MD per personal.
mdpersonal.com.
Okay,
That would come to me. I could then send out the PDF that I sent you so people
right.
can do their research, make sure they're know what they're getting into. And
Sure.
then from there, we would just set something up.
I'm just going to share the screen really quickly with people
Okay.
to show them the website. This is the vcelltreatment.com website. If you guys go to this page, there's an entire presentation, so you can go through again what Dr. Neimark has already explained, but it's kind of like you can read it all at your own pace and watch at your own pace and all that. Um, Doctor, is there anything you want to express before we go? I mean, this is a ton of information. I'm actually very interested myself, so I'm probably going to reach out to you to do this myself, to be
Yeah, I
honest with
would love to have you
you.
down
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Where are you? Where are you located?
We're a little far from you. I think I'm in Southern California, Minervine.
You know what? That's actually great because I like to go there to ride my motorcycle,
Oh,
and
cool.
it's not that far because the last time I went, I had to fly to Dubai.
Okay,
So
yeah, this is much
yeah,
closer than
it's a little better.
Dubai.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to come to California. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to reach out to you because I want to. I'd like to book something and try. And you know what? It'll be a further testimony to my listeners if we can do something and I can show in my blood work the change.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love
Yeah,
to work with you and help you
yeah,
and
yeah.
then you get to see the process firsthand
Right.
and it,
Yeah.
it'll it'll be fascinating.
Well, thank you very much for the education on this and actually opening up everybody's eyes to the option. So hopefully, a lot of my listeners, I get these emails all the time about the stem cell treatments that I already
Oh,
did.
really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is actually, I'm actually a little bit even more interested in this now because of it just sounds a little more promising. It
It's
sounds,
the next evolution
yeah,
in stem cell therapy. There's no question about it. I mean, these
right,
things go everywhere, and the anti-aging portion of it, just that we can definitively document that we can turn back that clock in
right,
an additive way, it makes your cells younger. I mean, who
right,
wouldn't want that?
yeah,
My guess is that every day, here's my vision for the future.
hmm,
You're going to come in, we'll do your labs, we'll do your DNA methylation testing because you can learn other things from that as well.
right,
And then people will come for their physical once a year and they'll get a stem cell treatment before they leave.
right.
And every year you just stay 3 years ahead of the
Are
game. I mean,
people
that's
gonna
the future.
are people gonna live
Or
forever?
or yeah,
I
no,
mean,
no, I don't think anybody's going to live forever. It doesn't
yeah,
turn it back that much. But you know what I'm saying is that why wouldn't we do everything we
yeah,
can to keep our body healthy? Or if you have a heart attack, they're going to give you a dose of V cells in the ER. If you have
right,
a stroke, they're going to we know that the larger the number of circulating stem cells at the time of a heart attack or any injury, the better the healing.
Right.
So it's going to be, that's our future. If you're
Hmm.
out on the field and you get an injury, they're going to inject you right there.
How
That's the future.
how long do you think it'll take before? Because I think ultimately, especially for the bodybuilding community, because like I said, we're a little bit more experimental with our, we're a little bit more open-minded with our health, I believe. I mean,
Right.
we don't always take it seriously like we should, but we're open to new things. So how long before that barrier to entry? Because $10,000 is not doable for a lot of
Right.
people, right?
Right.
So how long before that barrier of entry starts to come back to somewhere where it's more manageable for the average person?
You know, I mean, I don't know. That's such a great question. I hope it's within the next 10 years where we get it. I think if we could get it down below the into the $4,000 or $5,000
I
range,
was going to
it's
say that. Yeah.
doable.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I think the average person would save, 3 to 5 grand if it
yeah,
really meant that it was going to change their health.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's doable. I think that'll come, and we'll see with time. I mean, if insurances start picking up the stuff,
Mhm.
then it's home free.
Right, right, of course.
Yeah, then we're there.
Well, doctor, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for the education and the lesson and the new option for people. And I hope I'll personally be seeing you soon.
Thank you so much. I really look forward to it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Fouad. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.